Hey, it's Dr. Linda Davis, and today I want to walk you through how to create a revenue graph from a table in Excel, and I want to show you also how to format that graph so that it can be ready to go into a PowerPoint slide. So I have in front of me a Microsoft table with the years, the revenue, and the net income listed, and this is all in billions, and I pulled that from Morningstar.com. And I'm going to first highlight what I need for the revenue graph. So first I'm going to highlight years, including the column heading for year, and revenue, including the column heading for revenue. That's all I need for the revenue graph. Then I'm going to go up to Insert, and I'm going to look in Charts, and the one we want is this Insert Scatter XY. Just click on that. Of the choices presented, you want the scatter graph that's just the data points and nothing else, so that's that first one, so click on that. You'll see it appear on top of your graph, but just actually we want to just kind of copy it and put it onto another sheet. So let me just go ahead and add another sheet here. I'm going to rename sheet 2 Microsoft revenue graph, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to lock that in by hitting enter. I'm going to go back to the Microsoft table and just Control C to copy, or just right click and copy this graph and go over and paste it in. Usually about B3 is where I like to land them, so Control V to paste. And I'm going to change my view to go back to 100% on this, and I'm just going to make this graph a little bit bigger, still be on the page. It's still a little big. Okay, something like that. I'm going to do a lot of formatting to this graph to make it more in line with what we need for PowerPoint. In PowerPoint, the graph needs to be big and bold and colorful. So that's why it's going to be quite a bit different than what you see right now. I really don't need this title here because PowerPoint will have its own subtitle of revenue, so I'm going to delete that out. I'm also going to go up and change, enlarge everything. It can leave it on Calibre, but I'm just going to jump up and change this to around 16 point for the font size for everything, and then I'll work it from there. Like I said, lots of formatting. Pretty much anything on the graph you can double click on and have a right panel pop up that you can format different things. First, I'm going to get rid of the vertical grid lines. Let me click on the vertical grid line. They're all active, and hit delete on my keyboard. I'm going to do the same thing for the horizontal ones as well. Delete those out. And then I'm going to get rid of the .00. I really don't need that all the way down on the y-axis. So let me double click on any value here. And notice the right panel pops up for format axis. On this one, I'm going to scroll down to where it says number, and that's expands, so I can scroll down some more to see what I can do in there. And I want to change my decimal places to 0 because I just want it to be like a whole number. So we've done that. Now there's no real save over here. It does it. You just need to click back over here to see that it's made that change. I also want to make this, I said, a little bit more colorful. So let me go in and I want to select my y-axis values here. I want to make those, since this is Microsoft, I'm kind of going to use Microsoft's company colors. So and it's going to go on a dark blue background, so I want very bright colors. So I'm going to maybe pick, a very bright green and bold that. And my years, same thing. I can make them bold and make them bright green. And also, I want to identify what these y-axis values are. So I can click on those, and you may notice now that you're working within a chart or a graph that you get these 2 extra chart tools, design. It may say chart design in later versions or format. So you can go into design tab and you'll see add chart element, and that will allow you to add an axis title, and that is what we need. So I'm going to go to axis title, primary vertical, and that will give me basically just a text box there that I can go in and highlight and type in what it needs to say. This is revenue, obviously, and asterisk It's in billions. Okay. Now the color, I may not want it to be black. I may obviously want to change that to, you know, some bright color like blue. Let me do blue. Let me pull that back in. There we go. Since it's going to go on a really dark background. Also, I do want to show you how to make these data points larger. The Excel calls them markers, so you want to activate those. Just one click will activate all of them. If you double click on them, it will say format data point. Well, I don't want to just do one, I want to do them all. So let me see if I can get back and get them all to activate. Let me go back out, come back in. Being a little stubborn there. Okay, they're all active now. Let me go up to the formatting. It says fill in line. But that's where you want to start with this. They're all active, and I want to remember I said, you know, Excel calls them markers, not data points. So click on marker, and you have marker options below that. So click on that to expand. Now you can change the shape, you can change the size and the color of these data points or markers. So I'm going to make it diamonds instead. So the type I'll change to diamonds, and the size, since it's going to PowerPoint, I want it big and bold. I'm going to size it up to size 12. And if I scroll down the color, you know, if I don't want that blue shade, you know, if I want to do the bright green, I can do that. That's the border. The fill color, the part in the middle, I can say just a solid color. I can make it bright yellow, you know, just whatever works. And so that kind of is in the Microsoft list of colors that they use for their company colors. So I've got that done, so I can exit out to see that now. And I want to also work with my year range as well as my revenue range, because I'm going to be forecasting, and if I'm forecasting, I'm going to run out of room. If I go up to like 2026 or 2027, I'm going to exceed what the graph has room to show. So what I'm going to do is go down to years first. Just double click on the year, and format axis will pop up again on the right, and you want to change your range here. So the minimum's fine of 2020, but I want to change the maximum to like 2028. So I may only forecast to 2027, but I want that little extra room going on there. And I'll go with that. And major unit is 1.0. A lot of times it'll give me a major unit on this exercise of 0.5, which I don't want every half year. So just go back in and change it to 1 unit or 1 major unit there to make it every year. All right, let me click out of that, and you'll see that it has changed the years. Now I want to say every year, but it kind of forgot that. Let me go back in there and have it not change itself to 2. I didn't do that, it did it, but let me make it work here. All right, now I'll also, with my forecast, I will run out of room vertically as well, so I need to change the y-axis values as well. So let me double click on those. You know, I really don't have anything going on between 0 and 100 billion right in here, so I can actually start at, make my minimum 100 billion and make my maximum jump up to 400 and see how that works. My major unit can probably just go to 50. So every 50 billion. That works out better. Notice how it just kind of slid all my data points down to be more in the middle of the graph, which is better for my forecast abilities here, which I'll be forecasting out to 2027. Okay. Now, once we've got that done, I do want to do the forecast. And that's regression analysis, you know, putting a trend line in, sum of least squares, you know, that y equals mx plus or minus b, the linear equations, because this is pretty much linear, not perfectly linear, but pretty much. So I can right click on any data point and get this small menu to pop up, and I can say just add trend line. And it's going to immediately jump to linear, but if you've got curved data, you might want to pick polynomial instead. Just depends on the company. So I'm going to leave it on linear for Microsoft, and I can scroll down, and I'm going to forecast forward 2 years. So I'm going to put a 2 in there. And I can also check mark to display equation on the chart. I can check mark to display the r-squared value, which if I did briefly would show me the closer the r-squared value is to 1, the more linear these data points are, which makes it easy for forecasting. And that is very close to 1. So that's obviously within the range of what's acceptable. So I'm going to go with that. Now I can kind of tell here for 2027 it's given me an answer. I do need tick marks. I kind of forgot those. Let me double click on the years and put those tick marks in. Let me go back and double click. Tick marks, I believe that's going to be under format axis. There's tick marks. Just expand that and tell them you want the major type you want to select. I like the inside ones. And the same thing for the y-axis. Just go down there to tick marks there as well and say inside. Now they don't show up very good yet. I'm going to actually make those axes lines bold as well. Let me just go ahead and click on one of them and I will go to the format part and I want to get a line. That's your axes line. So I want to say solid line, which is there already, but I want to make it a bright color. So I'm going to make it blue, that bright blue or light blue, and I'm going to take the width of that and take it up to 4.5 point, since that's getting it ready for PowerPoint. Notice how bold that now is. Same thing for the x-axis line. Again, solid line. That one I still want to make it blue, that bright blue, and then just take up the level for the thickness there. And now you can see the tick marks better too. So that's bigger, bolder, and more colorful. All right, so exit out of that. Now, as far as this still being in Excel, and I've got most everything I need. I've got the forecast going on. Okay, so at this point, I would just really want to make a copy of this and just put it right down below. So I'm going to copy paste that graph. Whoops, I shouldn't paste it down here. There we go. Why am I making a copy of it? Well, because on this copy, I want to take the actual trend line out. So I'm just activating it and hitting delete on my keyboard, because this is the one that should go to PowerPoint after I take out the white background, because I want to redraw the trend line in PowerPoint. So that's why I don't want to take it with me from Excel to PowerPoint. Let's get rid of these white backgrounds though and make it more transparent. So I'm going to click on the chart area, the whole chart here, and I want to tell it that I want no border. So that's no, so go under border and say no line. Okay, and I also want to go under there, and which is this the line that goes around the chart. And I also want to go to where it says fill and say no fill. And you can see the Excel cells pop through when you do that. So that means you're more transparent now. So this is the one we want to take to PowerPoint. So I'm going to launch PowerPoint. And just the layout, I'm going to make it blank. I'm not doing the whole slideshow, I'm just doing this one slide just to show you how this should work. I'm going to set a background, so I'm going to go to Design, Format Background, and just make it dark blue, really dark blue, like the darkest blue there. All right, and then I'm going to go in, let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger, not smaller, there we go. Okay, and I'll just put some, I'll insert a text box just to kind of give us a pretend Microsoft title there, and I'll just make that a little bigger. Let's see, we'll make it like in white. And stretch that text box from edge to edge, and then we'll center it, and we should bold it. There we go. And then I'll have a little subtitle, which I can just kind of make, copy this one, change the words and the size down to just, this is going to, subtitle would be like revenue graph with forecast. Just make that a bit smaller. Oops. Something like that. Now we can bring the graph in. So how do you bring a graph in when you're coming from Excel over to PowerPoint? Well, let's go back. Here's our Excel without the regression line. Simple. It's simple on the copy side. Just copy. Now go to PowerPoint, but it's not paste. It's a little bit different than just regular paste. You're going to go up to the choices under paste, and the last one just says picture. Bring it in as a picture. That's the best way to handle it. So do that. It may not be the right size. That's okay. It's a picture, so I can just expand it with the room I have to work with. Let me just bump that up just a little bit more. Bump that up a little bit more. Okay. And let's see. Always resize from the corners. All right, that's probably about as big as I can make it. So I want to animate what I need to animate. So that would be the subtitle. Obviously, this would be deeper within the PowerPoint. I'll just pick white, and then let's see, get that up there. Let me go to animation pane so I can animate as I go. That will be after previous since it's a subtitle. And here's your graph. That should be spiral in is what I like my students to use for graphs. And it's start after previous for that as well. The trend line goes in next. Now, the reason I kept my Excel and my old trend line was to pay attention to how that trend line drew below, under, over, the different data points. And you want to mimic that as best as you can with a line of your own. So we're going to insert that shape and reproduce that. Let me go to shapes. There we go. And there's our line. So at the bottom part of that one, below that one, part of that one, I got to see how close I am. Now, I'm not just stopping at 2025 here. I'm going all the way out past 2027, my forecast amount. And just look back at your data points and make sure that you're kind of, drawing them like the real regression lines drew. So you want to mimic that as best you can. I'll let go. I'm a little bit past 2025. Okay. And then I'll put that shape color in. I'll make it red. I'll make it thick, like 4.5 as well. And while I'm here, let me animate. So that's wipe from left, and it should be on click. The words linear trend line pop up next. So I'll insert a little text box for that. And that'll just say linear trend line, white, bold. And animate that, which will be box in, I think is what I usually use for that. And that will be after previous. And then the 2027 forecast, that starts with an oval around 2027. So I'll insert the shape of oval around 2027. Now, I usually take it to the side and format it first. So I want the shape fill to go away. So no fill, but I want the shape outline to be red, and I want it to be thick, like 4.5. And then I can push it over to set on top of 2027. And then I want to animate that, which is just white, and it's going to be on click. And the arrow going up and an arrow going over points at my answer. Okay, so let's do 2 arrows to do that. There's the arrow. Starting right at the tick mark. That's why you want those tick marks in there. Now, if you have trouble keeping this straight, just hold shift down on your keyboard. There we go. Make it red, make it 4.5. And then we'll animate that. Wipe from top after previous and do another arrow so that you can take it from there on the trend line all the way over. Hold shift down to where you strike the y-axis. Again, red, 4.5 point. And that also should be wipe from top. And after previous, your final text box is just the answer. You know, what is it pointing at? What value is it pointing at? The easy way is just to take the text box you've already created, make a copy of it. So Control C, Control V, paste it up there, either there or even up here, and you get in there and just change the words to say, you know, in 2027, revenue is forecast to be, and where did we hit? We hit about 330 billion. See, now we just do 330B per billion. And that came with animation because I copied it from here. So you do have to change the start to on click for that one. Now, let me see if I have any issues with this. Let me play it. I think it kind of rushed through. Let me go back. There we go. All right, so there we go. It's our graph. Then we click again to have the trend line and the words linear trend line pop up. And for the forecast part, we click again for 2027 to pop up and points at our answer. And then we finish off with a click that says exactly what the answer is forecast to be. I did notice one mistake. I think my last arrow wasn't in the right direction. So let me click on the arrow and change that to be, let's see if I can change that to be from right. Let's see if that fixed it. Click. Click. Seem to have a glitch going on. Okay, let me launch it again. Click. There's the forecast. And this arrow is wrong too, so let's fix that. That should be from bottom. There we go, that's better. And finishing off with the last sentence there. Okay, so that's how we create it from a table in Excel. Then we build a graph. Then we format the graph for PowerPoint. Then we bring it over to PowerPoint and we animate it. And obviously stop and save. And you can just name it Microsoft Graph or Microsoft Revenue Graph. Now, as far as doing the net income graph, go back to your Microsoft table. Let me delete this one off of there. It's the same process for building the Microsoft net income graph. The only difference is when you go to select the years, do that like normal, and then hold Control down on your PCs and then highlight the net income column and leave out the revenue column. And then you can go Insert, pick the same graph again, pick the same dotted scatter plot one, and that one did not come up right. Let me do that again. Highlight that, Control down, like that, Insert. There we go. Did the same thing twice, but it did it right the second time. All right, so there you go. And you start with that and format it out for PowerPoint. All right, I hope that helps you. Thanks for watching.